Hello everyone, and good day or good evening depending where you are. Today, welcome to our next lesson, continuing with the structure of the spiritual worlds, and this is our second semester. And today we're going to talk about, we're going to follow up from the previous lesson, the inverse relation between lights and vessels. But before we go on with the lesson, today we have a question from Japan by email, and so first we're going to answer that. And if you do have a question and you feel like you need to have it answered, you can ask questions to us. You can email them to us. If you're sending from Africa, you can write to africa@kabbalah.academy. I think I got that right. And then the second one is if you're writing from Asia, you can write Asia@kabbalah.academy. So you can write to us, send in your questions via email, and we always try to answer them in the next lesson. So Ando from Japan has got a question. So let's get that off our chest before we move on. Ando is saying, I think that the content of what we're learning is important, but that the most important thing is to feel and be next to the Creator. But to be so-called spiritual person and to actually feel the Creator are probably two different things. I think there are probably many people in the world who can sense different energies but are still far from the Creator. How can a person judge to what extent he is close or far from the Creator? And how many people in Japan can sense the Creator's light with their five senses? So there are two nice questions there. How can a person judge to what extent he is close or far from the Creator? Well, that's a nice question, something we need to know about. Now, just like in reality, we measure closeness or parity with respect to qualities and how similar qualities are, right? For example, let's say we both love sushi. I love sushi, you love sushi as well, and according to our likes, we're very close to each other. And that's called proximity. Why? Because we have the same kind of attitude or the same kind of traits. We might like other things. I don't know. We might be both spiritual. We might both like soccer. We might both like, I don't know, traveling. Okay. So the more attributes or the more qualities that we have in common, we are that close. Okay, we're close to each other, and that's how actually friends are close to each other as well. Why? Because they like the same thing, they have the same mentality, and so on. So the situation here is pretty much similar. In order for us to be close to the Creator, we have to have His attributes as well. We have to be in His kind of realm. We have to be in His qualities. And that's how you measure parity or closeness, proximity in spirituality. So just like two people who might be in the same room and they might hate each other because they're of different opinions. And same here. So we can measure the closeness to the Creator as much as we attain His attributes. And that's the important thing, to attain the attributes, the qualities of the Creator. And according to that proximity, you can sense and feel the Creator, which is actually what the wisdom of Kabbalah allows us to achieve. Because by studying and by practically applying what we study inside an environment called the group, we can actually begin to discern what our qualities are and what the qualities of the Creator are from that environment. So it's like a feedback. And through that, we begin to actually transform ourselves. We go through an inner transformation, and that inner transformation allows us to start opening up our perception, because in our five senses we cannot perceive the Creator. If we could already, we would be doing it. This is why we need an additional sense, which is in the books is called a soul. Sometimes a sixth sense, but generally we call it a soul. A soul is like a sensory organ, just like we have eyes, ears. The soul also have five senses. They're called Keter, Chokhmah, Bina, Zerampin, and Malchut. Just like we have eyes, ears, nose, tongue to taste and touch, all these sensory organs are in our corporeality. However, our soul also has 5 senses, which are known as the 5 parts of him, or the 10 Sefirot, which are counted as Keter, Rochma, Bina, Zerampin, and Malkut. So in order to feel the Creator, to be close to him, we have to start attaining his attributes. And in fact, that's the purpose of life, and that is what we should be attaining while we live in this world. That is the purpose of life. Okay? So how can you judge that? Well, that's going to be a personal experience, isn't it? This is why the wisdom of Kabbalah is called the secret wisdom, or the hidden wisdom. Why? Because it's talking about just you. So I can never know what's really going on inside of you. You can't really know what's going on inside of me. That's why it's called a concealed wisdom. Everybody lives this wisdom within themselves, and that closeness, farness is an individual impression that one gets through the study of the wisdom of Kabbalah. So the more we study, we'll be able to make such discernments as we qualitatively begin to change our attribute from our egoistic, narrow, self-centered lives into an opening where we can actually begin to feel what's outside of us rather than being focused on living with everything that's inside of us. You can also refer to the perception of reality lesson that we did earlier on during the first part of this semester. And how many people in Japan can sense the Creator's light with their 5 senses? Well, within the 5 senses, nobody can. Nobody can sense it in Japan or anywhere else, because we need a soul to sense the Creator. And that's what we need to build. Okay? So you'll be happy to know that if you continue your study with us, we'll begin to develop one. And although it does take time, but everything takes time. Building a career takes time. You go to university, you work for a lot of years, you attain experience, then you become a manager and so on. And so as any scientist would know, that discovering or delving into a science takes many years. And the wisdom of Kabbalah is also a science. It's a personal science where I want to locate, understand, and really bring myself into this reconciliation with everything that's happening in reality. And that takes personal research about me, my place in reality, and this reality. So it's a very personal science, and obviously it'll take some time. However, though, we will advance and we will get there. All right, so it's good to have questions. Like I said, once again, you can send your questions to these email addresses. If you're from Africa, send them to africa@kabbalah.academy. If you're from Asia, send them to asia@kabbalah.academy. If you're from anywhere else, you can still send a question. Okay, just choose any email address. You're more than welcome to ask questions. Generally, these lessons we're giving are for the Asian and Africa students that we have. But if you're interested and you want to ask a question, it doesn't matter. Even if you're from Timbuktu, you can ask and send us your questions, and we'll be more than happy to answer them, and in fact help you as well if you want to continue to study further on. Now, today's lesson is called the inverse relation between lights and vessels. It's a bit of a tough topic. Okay, we need to get our heads around it, and it might be a little confusing sometimes. However, every science is. Okay, but before we go on, let's do a little recap about what we learned up to here. All right, so we learned, I'm not going to go over it in details. I'm just going to draw the few things that we learned before so we can just catch up to where we are. Now, we learned that the Creator created out of nothing a desire to receive pleasure, and he actually fulfilled it with light. Okay, this is a desire to receive. There's no creature yet. We're not in the picture at all. The Creator is creating a desire to receive. It's like somebody making a vase out of clay. Okay, there's no soul in it. There's nothing in it. It's just raw material. Okay, we went over these things, and this was the root. This was phase 1, and then the next phase developed, which was the desire to receive, wanting to bestow back to the Creator. And that was number 2. And from there, the desire to receive decided it has nothing to give to the Creator because it's a desire to receive. So it decided, I'll receive a little bit, but in order to bestow to the Creator. Okay, so that way I can bestow back. And from there on, that was the third. And from there on, the fourth phase occurred, where the desire to receive, now being a receiver and a bestower, enjoys both of them so much that it wants to, let me just make this a little better. Okay, it wants to receive everything, the attributes of the Creator and everything that the Creator has to offer, and wants complete fulfillment. And that's the fourth phase. And as you will remember, this is called Keter, Chochmah, Bina, Tiferet, or sometimes we call it Zeirampin, and this is called Malchut. Okay, in the previous lessons we went over them. I'm just, speedily moving across. And then we learned that the desire to receive felt shame by receiving everything from the Creator, because it discovered that it's really opposite to the Creator. The Creator is all bestowing and giving. And in this fourth phase, this desire to receive is full-on reception. It just wants to get everything. So it feels quite bad about itself, and it feels shame. And this shame brings about something called the first restriction, which we also learned in our previous lesson. And this first restriction allowed the created being to stop receiving the light. So whatever the light the Creator wanted to bestow, the created being did not take it in. It says, I am not taking anything. And that's the first restriction. And after that, we talked about what a spiritual partsuf is. And we said that a spiritual partsuf is actually a soul. A partsuf is actually spiritual, so we don't really need to use the word spiritual, but that's how the topic was named. And we drew the vessel like this. It's the same thing as drawing it like this, okay? I'm just drawing it differently, but at the end of the day, it's the same thing. Now this fourth phase, inside it has everything. It has the root phase, the first phase, the second phase, the third and the fourth phase, because at the end of the day, this is a result of all the development. Okay, so all of these phases brought about this result. Okay, that's the result. And after this, now we can talk about what a partsuf is. A partsuf, we discussed last time, is a vessel which can bestow to the Creator. In other words, it's a soul. Okay, so the desire to bestow, which is the Creator, wants to give to the created being. As usual, the Creator does not change, will not change. He will always want to bestow. However, the created being decided after this restriction that the only way to arrange a proper relationship with the Creator is to receive in a way that I can bestow. Otherwise, I'm not receiving anything. So this first restriction we said was a law. It's also a law in nature. This is why we cannot be happy in life. In life, you can never be fulfilled. You always have to run after a desire, because the first restriction is a law and it will never ever be cancelled. You can never receive anything for yourself and expect to be happy. You'll always be unhappy. Right? So this is a very important law. This first restriction is always working. And now, this is the partsuf, is we need to know what the partsuf is, because we need to understand how we operate in spirituality. And this operation in spirituality is how we operate in spirituality. It's called the partsuf, because a partsuf is actually arranging my relationship with the Creator according to what He wants to bestow and according to my attitude towards the Creator. I can balance this relationship. So I don't feel like a dog that's been thrown a bone, but I want to be in an equal status quo with the Creator so that we don't have any bad feelings. All right, consider it like a business deal where everybody is like on equal terms and everybody is okay with that. Nobody's on top of the other. Otherwise, one side's going to feel bad, won't they? So, what is a Partzuf? Well, the Partzuf is, like I said, a soul. The Creator wants to bestow full on bestowal. 100%. The created being, the desire to receive, says, listen, this is not on. I'm only going to receive just a little bit. In order to bestow to you. And that's it. All of the other desires I have down here, they're all empty. This part is all empty. So the Creator's light, we said, was Or Yashar, direct light. Okay? The returning light, as much as I can bestow, is called Or Chozer, which is the returning light, like I said. And the light, which I took inside the vessel in order to bestow to the Creator, is called Or Pnimi, which is called the inner light. Or Pnimi. Okay? So those are the three types of lights. However, though, the Creator wants to bestow 100%. I only took a little bit. Let's say 5% or 10%. The remaining 90% of what the Creator wants to give me is still on the table, but I'm not touching it. That remaining part is called, let me do that with black. That remaining part is called Or Makif. Or Makif means surrounding light. In other words, there's still pleasure on the table, but I'm not willing to take it because the pleasure is going to take my mind off the importance of our friendship. So the pleasure from the gift or the pleasure from the feast is going to give me more pleasure than our relationship. Think of it something like that with the example we read last time with the host and the guest. Okay? And we took the light as far as we could. This point here was called tabur. And this is where the masach stands, the screen. Okay? The masach, which is the screen. Okay, which we learned all these, so I'm just running over it. But if you've got questions, send me an email, we'll go over it, okay? I don't want to rush it. That's the masach, the screen, okay? That's the tabur. Tabur means the navel, okay? It's where the belly button is. And this is the siyum, which is the end. That's the end of the Partzuf. Now, we can draw the Partzuf like this, or we can draw it like this. It doesn't really matter. All right, Kabbalists sometimes draw it like a vessel, like this, or sometimes they draw it like this. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, we're a desire to receive pleasure. The Creator is the desire to bestow. He wants to give us pleasure, and light actually means pleasure. So there's all kinds of pleasures. And what we want to do is get that pleasure, but we want to make sure that before we get the pleasure, we arrange our relationship in such a way that we don't feel like we're receiving charity, okay? Because we don't want to feel bad in this relationship. And that's what a Partzuf looks like. Now, we've got a few more parts in this thing, which is called the head of the Partzuf. Now, the head of the Partzuf is actually this part here, okay? Because this is where I do the calculation, all right? Because at the end of the day, what's the head for, right? We calculate. We decide how much we're going to take. This is called the Rosh. How much I'm going to receive from the Creator only in order to bestow. So that's where we calculate. That's the Rosh. And where the Masach is, which is here, it's called Peh. Peh means the mouth. Now obviously I don't want anybody relating this Partzuf to our body, our face, our head, nothing. Our body is just a representation. It's like, I don't know how to even say it. Our body doesn't even really properly exist. It's just a representation to give us an idea about the Partsuf, okay? But our body has nothing which is spiritual. It's a piece of meat. It will die. And that's why it's not spiritual. If it was spiritual, it would go on living forever. So our body has nothing spiritual in it. It's just a stepping stone to build spirituality. And this is why sometimes in Kabbalistic books, they give such terms in order to describe a certain state, a certain situation, which can be kind of like used as an example, like a similarity. You know, this is how it's like, kind of thing. And that's what it is. So pe means the mouth. That's where the screen is. So it's as if I'm stopping myself here before I eat anything, before I take a bite. I stop myself. I make a calculation in the Rosh. I stop myself with the restriction, with the tzimtzum. Okay, tzimtzum is the restriction. Tzimtzum. The reason I'm writing these in Hebrew as well is just so that you get familiar with all the technical terms as well. If you want to learn it, you can. If you don't, you can stick with the English ones as well. It's not a problem. I just want to make sure I give you everything in case you want to learn it, okay? So, pe in the mouth, it's like I don't take anything. I'm restricting myself completely, okay? So that's how they denote it. So it's like a body. The parts of it is like a body, right? It's got a navel, it's got a head, mouth. It actually has eyes, ears, taste buds and everything as well. However, it has them in spirituality, okay, which is the 5 senses that we have in spirituality known as Keter, Chochmah, Bina, Zerampin, Malchut, okay? So the body is like a symbolic thing, but it has nothing to do with spirituality. We have to build spirituality from scratch. Just like the Creator built this reality from scratch, we have to build this Partsuf, the reality, the existing, the ability to exist in the realm of the Creator from scratch. Otherwise, we would never be able to come to the equivalence of form with the Creator. Otherwise, we'd never grow. Just like kids have to build their own lives, we also have to build our own lives in spirituality. It's the same format. This is why observing this world and the laws of nature in reality are very important, because they give us tips on how to move forward and what we can learn from the laws of nature. In fact, exactly how we can use these laws of nature in order to advance spiritually as well. All right? And this is what a Partsuf looks like. Any questions so far? Right. Nothing yet, which is fine. So now we're going to move on to our topic, which is the inverse relation between lights and vessels. And this is going to describe to us quickly, I'll tell you why. Okay. We discovered, well, we didn't discover, we learned, right? Let's get that right. Okay, we learned that the desire to receive has root 1, 2, 3, and 4 phases. Okay, so we've got here 1, 2, 3, 4. Oops, sorry, my mistake. I'm sorry about that. Root. Okay, so that's root 1, 2, 3, 4 phases. Okay, Keter, Chochmah, Bina, Zerampin, and Malchut. We already know this, we learnt this, and that's fine. Now, the Creator also, we learned about the Creator. He wants to bestow 24/7. He is such a loving guy. All he wants to do is just bestow. 24/7, 365, love. Okay? That's how he is. We, on the other hand, want to receive everything. However, what did we do? We put a first restriction on, and we said, oh, wait a minute, we don't want to receive currently under the circumstances. Okay. However, when we do receive, more and more and more until we receive everything. Okay? Since we're going to receive everything from the Creator, the more we receive, the more we receive, the more we receive, what's going to happen is we're going to bestow accordingly. For everything, every level, we're going to bestow to the Creator. Okay? Which means it's going to correspond to the maximum reception humanly possible. Well, spiritually possible, let's say. Okay? That way, as you can see, we're able to receive everything from the Creator, step by step, bit by bit. Okay, there we go. This is what it's supposed to be like. Receiving everything, fulfilling the purpose of reality, the purpose of creation, receive everything from the Creator in order to bestow. Have everything and bestow to the Creator at the same time. Just like He is 100%, we are bestowing 100%. And in fact, we're receiving 100%. Full reception. This is what it's supposed to be like. So that's the purpose of creation. And when we do this, this will be the end of correction. It's called the final correction. However, though, what the topic today is, you're going to describe to us how this all works out. All right, so let's read a little bit. As you know, we're always going with the sources. And today we're going to read from Yehuda Ashlag, Baal Sulam, from the article Preface to the Wisdom of Kabbalah. So let's go slowly over it, and we'll begin to understand what he's talking about, at least a little bit, so we can get our heads around it. This is, like I said, an important topic. It's also a bit confusing for new students. In fact, it's confusing for veteran students. In fact, even if you're a Kabbalist, it does get confusing sometimes. Okay? So it's important for us to understand at least a little bit. So let's see what the writings are talking about. All right, here we go. This is so because all the parts of Kedusha emerged with a masach. So all the vessels of reception. So all of these are actually everything here. Okay, everything, all the desires that we possibly have, from here to here. Okay, in all the worlds of Bria, Yitzhak, Asiya, Atzut, and Adam Kadmon, all the worlds, we learned these before. Okay, and all of them have parts of Him in them, right? Desire to receive that can bestow. Many parts of Him. Parts of Him is the plural for partsuf. So we have a lot of structures there, a lot of desires that can actually bestow. That's what it's talking about. So it's saying this is because all the parts of Him of Kedusha. Kedusha means holiness. So as long as I can bestow, I'm holy. Okay? If I can't bestow, I'm not holy. So holy means having the attribute of the Creator. So no, we're not talking about some person who's called holy out there on the street. Holy means I perceive the Creator, I receive from the Creator in order to bestow, and that is called holiness. Okay? To be like the Creator is called holy. So this is so because all the parts of Him, so all of the desires that are here, okay, emerge with a masach, screen erected in their kli malchut. So all of these desires have a malchut in them, okay? And that's actually what we're trying to correct, okay? The desire, remember what we drew just previously. Here, if I go here. Now the desire to receive that wanted to receive everything is this guy here. That's Malchut. And this is the state that we're trying to correct. Everything else is actually okay. But this Malchut in all of our desires, there's a point called Malchut in all of our desires, which wants to get everything, and it wants to get everything for itself. It just wants to do it for itself. And it's this point that requires correction in all our desires. Accordingly, it's saying to us, it's explaining to us rather nicely, saying that this is so because all the parts of him of Kedusha emerged with a masach, screen, okay, there's the screen, all of them have a screen, erected in their Kli Malchut, so consider this as the Kli of Malchut, okay, let's call this Malchut. So we got Malchut, erected with a masach, so they would not receive in this Bechina Dalet. So we're not going to receive in Malchut at all. This is why we've got the first restriction, right? This is why we put the screen up here in the first place. Okay, it's talking about now the screen, which we did here. Okay, remember this? This is the screen which we put on top of the desire, and we said we're not receiving anything, thank you very much. Then, when the upper light was extended and spread to the emanated being, this masach rejected it. So this is the masach, and this masach is now rejecting it. Okay, it's saying, no, I don't want any light. This is regarded as striking between the upper light and the masach. So when this situation happens, it's called a striking. We're just learning some technical terms, right? Nothing complicated at all, although it may sound like it's a bit complicated. It isn't. We learned there's a desire to receive. We understand that the desire to receive made a restriction, right? The first restriction. But the Creator, He wants to bestow all the time. That's His nature. Well, we said, sorry, no can do, because right now we can't bestow. So we're not taking any light. That's what it's talking about. This is what it's talking about, and this is what we learnt already. Okay? So there's nothing new here. First restriction. It's just describing to us what's going on. That's all. And this is the masach, which we learnt before. And here we've got the restriction. Okay? So we're not receiving any light from the Creator at all. Saying, right now I can't bestow back to you, and I don't want to be treated like a dog being thrown a bone. That's it. This is the situation. However, though, it's saying when the light strikes the masach, okay, it's called a striking. So this is called a striking. Okay. Then, when the upper light was extended and spread to the emanated being, this masach rejected it. Okay, so now we're rejecting the light here. And this is regarded as striking between the upper light and the masach, which raises or choser, which we just talked about here. So this is or choser. We reject the light after this striking of the Creator's light onto our masach. And that rejection causes something called the reflected light, which is or choser. This is regarded as striking between the upper light and the masach, which raises or choser, reflected light, from below upwards, clothing the 10 sephirot of the upper light. Now this is the tricky bit, okay? Because it's telling us this. The Creator's light is coming to us just like He created us in the direct phases, the 4 phases of direct light. Just like we went through these phases, right? The Creator's light is also coming to us. Keter, Chochma, Bina, Zerampin, Malchut. So the Creator's light is also coming to us in these 5 phases. Okay? Keter, Chochma, Bina, Zerampin, and Malchut. So the Creator, because what the Creator wants to give us everything. He can't do it. The Creator doesn't do a half job. He wants to give 100%. Otherwise, we can't call the Creator good. If you're going to give something, do it right. So this is why 100% giving is on behalf of the Creator. Now it's saying, because the Creator wants to give 100%, it includes all these things that it wants to give us, which is all these fulfillments. Okay, so consider these as like the Creator's fulfillments. It just wants to fulfill us. Okay? And because we rejected everything, rejection means I know what's on the table. I know what tastes there are. I know what pleasures I can get from the Creator because I see everything. I'm looking at Him straight in the eye. I'm looking at everything He can give me, and I understand the pleasures that are lying there. Now, this is important because I'm not receiving anything. It's saying, although I'm not receiving and rejecting everything, this situation causes what? Let's read that again. This is regarded as striking between the upper light and the Masah, which raises Or Hoser from below upwards, clothing the 10 Sifrot of the upper light. Now it means that all these tastes I can see that I can get from the Creator are now clothed in this reflected light. Okay? It's clothed because I know what I can get. Even though I haven't received anything, I've rejected everything, I'm aware of the pleasures. So these are clothed in me now. I have impressions from these things. Okay? Why does the Masah repel the light? Well, why? If we go back to the previous lesson, what did we learn in the previous lesson? We said in the previous lesson, look, we're not going to receive anything from the Creator because we feel like we're receiving charity. And we read the story about the guest and the host. And the guest looked at how much the host did for him and said, wow, if I was in the host's position, I wouldn't have done all this for you, you know. So he feels a little bit bad. He feels the discrepancies between the Creator and himself. And this is very important because you're getting this impression about what your nature, what your character, what you're made of, what you are. And you begin to understand what the Creator is. Now, this disparity of form is very important for us to understand because without two opposite ends, we can't perceive reality. Therefore, it's very important for us to reject. This rejection thing is very important because it brings to us all kinds of discernments about who I am and who the Creator is, about His approach to me and about my approach to Him. And without this impression, there's really nothing to build. If I was just to blindly take and eat or take whatever He wanted to give, I'd be like an animal. Just like we give animals food, they come, they eat, they take it, they don't feel any shame, they don't feel bad about it. Like kids, our children also, they come and they take things from our hands. We give them everything and they take it. They don't feel bad because as they grow up, they begin to discern shame and all kinds of things. But when they're little kids, they don't. Okay, same with animals as well. But here, we need to have this disparity of form causing some kind of an internal trigger that will allow us to start thinking about what we're going through in terms of the sensations that this disparity is bringing to us. All right? So that's very important. And this is why it's clothing in us. So the things that the Creator wants to give, although I'm not taking it, it begins to clothe inside of me and I begin to make discernments because Or Hoser is actually this relationship I'm trying to build towards the Creator. And I can only build this relationship towards the Creator when I begin to see how His relationship to me is by looking and seeing from His actions what He's giving to me, what He wants to give to me, and His presentation of the things He wants to give to me. This is why this clothing is very important because it allows you to understand each other. It begins to build a relationship this way. All right? So this understanding, this building of this relationship is this phase of first not receiving anything and rejecting everything, but with that you begin to get an understanding of where you both stand. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. I told you it's a little bit tricky, but as we move on, with many things we'll encounter things that don't really settle down inside of us until we get experience. Okay. Now let's read a little bit more from Preface to the Wisdom of Kabbalah. We're just moving on to item 14 on page 569. That part of the light that is rejected and pushed back is called Or Hoser. Okay, so that's called Or Hoser. This is the light we pushed back. It's called Or Hoser, reflected light. As it dresses the upper light, it becomes a kli for reception of the upper light instead of Bechina Dalet, since afterwards the kli of Malkut had expanded by the measure of the Or Hoser, the rejected light, which rose and dressed the upper light from below upwards and expanded from above downwards too. Thus the lights were clothed in the kelim, which is the kli, within that Or Hoser. Okay, now it's getting a little tricky. Seemingly it's getting a little tricky. What it's trying to tell us is this. The more I begin to see what the Creator wants to give me, and all the pleasures here, okay, because what did we say? Light, okay, all of these things is light. Okay, and that equals pleasure. All the pleasures that the Creator wants to give. Now let's go step by step so we get an understanding of what's going on. The part of the light that is rejected and pushed back is called Or Hoser, reflected light. As it dresses the upper light, so as it's dressing it here, okay, there we go, it becomes a kli for reception of the upper light instead of Bechina Dalet. So this Or Hoser is actually becoming a new kli. Okay, this Or Hoser becomes a new kli. Okay, that's new, right? For reception of the light. So this becomes a new kli for the reception of the light. For the reception of the light. Okay, we'll see what that is later. Instead of Bechina Dalet, okay, Bechina Dalet. In other words, instead of Malchut, now this Or Hoser becomes a vessel of reception. Okay. Since afterwards the kli of Malchut had expanded by the measure of Or Hoser, the rejected light, which rose and dressed the upper light from below upwards. Okay, so this is from below upwards, dressing the upper light, and expanded from above downwards too. Thus the lights were clothed in the kelim within that Or Hoser. Now what it's saying is something very, very unique. It's saying, well, listen, we just discovered all the pleasures that the Creator can give us. However, though, by not receiving it, we're beginning to now build inside of us this new vessel called Or Hoser, which represents all the pleasures that the Creator wants to give. But in addition to that, in addition to the food's taste, we're beginning to now discover how our relationship with the Creator is giving us pleasure. And that is the new vessel that the desire to receive did not have before. The desire to receive now is feeling a new kind of pleasure, which now becomes its real kli of reception. So instead of the food here becoming important, which we're still eating, which we still can eat. What's happening is this new vessel here, this nuclei of reception, is being built, and that's the friendship, the connection, the bonding, and the pleasure of that connection with the Creator. That's being clothed in us, because at the end of the day, the Creator's bestowal to us is also His approach to us, His attitude towards us. And just think of it like you have kids, you love them, and you're giving them a birthday present, you buy them things to make them happy, and from their happiness, you become happy. Okay? You're giving them presents, they're getting everything, but you're actually more happier than the kids. Why? Because you're happy from their happiness. Your happiness, your fulfillment is from your attitude towards the kids. Now think of it this way. Imagine the created being building a similar attitude of love, and that is now becoming the new vessel of reception. In other words, it's becoming the new vessel where I can receive happiness, joy, and pleasure. Instead of the food being important, our friendship is important. Okay, it's like taking your spouse out to a beautiful restaurant. Yeah, the restaurant is important, the food is great, yes. But what is more important is your relationship. And that's where the pleasure is, in the relationship, not in the food. The food is now an excuse. It's an excuse to create a new vessel of pleasure, which is called love. All right? So that's how the thing flips around. Let's see what else we've got. Okay, so let's first clarify a few things here. I just want to do a little recap about the lights so that we're all comfortable with this thing called light. That's our vessel of reception. This is our screen. This is the Creator bestowing. This is me receiving the light. Oops, let's make this straight. Let's make it like this. This is me receiving the light. And also I am now bestowing back to the Creator. And all of these have names. Or Yashar, which is the pleasure, the direct light that the Creator wants to give. The Or Pnimi is the pleasure I get in the vessel of reception. And Or Hoser is the pleasure I get now from bestowing back to the Creator. Okay, so these lights we need to figure out and make sure we understand. Okay, this is direct light. Returning light or reflected light, it's the same thing. Returning light. And this is the inner light. Okay? And the amount of light I receive, I drew it before up to a certain level, which I'll do that again so we don't have a confusion. Okay, the amount of light I can receive is up to the tabur in order to bestow. Okay, this is Or Pnimi again, Or Pnimi, inner light. So I receive up to here, and that's called the tabur. Okay? Just like we drew here previously. not to get confused. Okay? Receiving in order to bestow up to the tabur here. I just drew it like a vessel and that's it. Okay? Beyond that, I can't bestow. This is why actually I should also do something else. I should make this happen like this. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, there we go. There we go. The or pnimi is going to be here, isn't it? Okay, because this is where I'm receiving the light. This is where I'm receiving the light. Or pnimi. Okay, and this place is empty. There we go. That's more like it. Alright, the reason I drew this is so that you guys can understand what's going on. The technical terms. This is the inner light. And what they stand for. Light is, like we said, is pleasure. Okay? Now, the purpose of creation, we learned in the first semester, is what? To receive pleasure. Okay? Now we're learning, as we study this technical lessons, what we're supposed to be getting pleasure from. Because we understood that directly fulfilling our desire to receive will not bring us pleasure. This is why the desire cancels out the pleasure. They don't work out. It's like a short circuit. I'm hungry, I start eating, the taste of the food is diminishing. At the end of the day, I'm left with just like, it's like eating hay. Right? Because the taste of the food is disappearing. So now with these technical lessons, we're beginning to understand where the pleasure should be received. This is why it's talking about this new vessel of reception called Or Choser. That's where a new vessel of reception is being developed. So, although it sounds all technical, if we just step back a little bit and think about what he said, what he talked about, that the pleasure that we should be getting is from actually this love, this connection, this reciprocity in the relationship, rather than what I can get and fulfill myself with. Okay? So that's very important to understand. Okay, so let's read a little bit more, and now we're here at the inverse relationship between lights and vessels. Okay, so what we're going to do is we learned the structure. This is a structure. Okay, now what we're going to do is check out some details. Okay. All right, let's read a little bit more from the Preface to the Wisdom of Kabbalah, page 574, item 21. And you already know that in general, the substance of the Masach is called Kashiyut. Now, that's new. This is the Masach. Masach is a screen. Okay. And it's called, its essence, it's called Kashiyut. Kashiyut means hardness. Okay, why is it hard? Because it's not letting the light go in. This is a strong place. It's like a wall. All right, it's like an iron wall. Whatever the Creator wants to give, it's saying, no, I will not let you go through. That's why it's called kashiyut, hardness. Okay, hardness. Okay, let's go sentence by sentence. It'll be work out fine. Which means something very hard, which does not allow anything to push into its boundary. Similarly, the Masach does not let any of the upper light through it and into Malchut Bechina Dalet. Thus, it is considered that the Masach halts and repels the entire measure of light that should clothe the Kli of 5 Bechinot of Aviyut in Bechina Dalet are included and come in the Masach and join its Malchut. It has also been made clear that those measure of Kashiyut, hence 5 kinds of Zivug Dehaka, are discerned in the Masach, corresponding to the 5 measures of Aviyut in it. Okay, which is what we drew before. Let's read again now with this diagram. Thus, I'm just going to read the last part. Thus, it is considered that the Masach holds and repels the entire measure of light that should clothe the Kli of 5 Bechinot of Aviyut in Bechinat Dalet. Okay, so we know that this has 5 levels of Aviyut. Shoresh, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so thus it is considered that the Masach holds and repels the entire measure of light that should clothe the Kli of 5 Bechinot of Aviyut in Bechinat Dalet are included and come in the Masach and join its Malchut. It has also been made clear that those measure of Kashyut, hence 5 kinds of Zivug Dehaka, are discerned in the Masach. So it's saying the Zivug Dehaka, guys, it's discerned here because Zivug means mating. So this is mating. Okay. So the light, which is the Creator's light here, is smashing into the Masach. Okay. And this is called, according to the coarseness, according to the toughness of the Masach, there are 5 kinds of Zivug Dehaka. Zivug Dehaka means mating with a beating. Okay, that's what Zivug Dehaka is. Zivug Dehaka. Mating with a beating. It basically means this. The Creator is insisting. He's putting pressure on you. That's why it's a haka. That's why you're rejecting, but the Creator keeps pushing, saying, Lord, come on, take some more. Have this. I want to give this to you. He's putting pressure on us. So this is called Zivug Dehaka. We're rejecting it, but the Creator is insisting. He's putting pressure on us. Okay? And that's why the screen's kashyut, the hardness, is according to the aviyut, the coarseness that I have. So the stronger my masach is, the more I have the Zivug Dehaka in 5 phases. And if I can reject all these desires, it means my masach is really, really strong. It's a really strong masach which can be clothed in all the 5 levels here. Shoresh, Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet. Okay? Root 1, 2, 3, 4. That means I can clothe myself with all of those lights. Clothing the light of Or Yeshar is like I'm clothing myself with the attributes of the Creator. I'm taking from the Creator his attributes, his attitude of bestowal, his attitude of love. That's what it means to clothe with the Or Yeshar. If I was to just receive the pleasures He gave me, then I'd just be taking them in here, and that would be it. Okay, He gave us food, we ate it, and that's it. But no, I want to get the thought behind that bestowal. I want to incorporate myself with the Creator's attitude, to be like Him. Rather than being a receiver, I want to make sure that my position, that my place, that my self-respect, if you like, is not weakened or is not compromised. Okay, so the stronger my masach is, the screen, I can refuse more and more from the Creator. And that's what we should have actually. We should have a really, really strong masach. And in time, that's what we're going to be building as we move forward in spirituality. Okay? So the coarseness of the masach is the level of desire that can be added. Okay? So let's draw it again. I know I'm drawing a lot, but the reason is, I want you to make sure you understand. If I have a lot of desires, okay, let's say let's draw them again. I have all these desires, right? The fourth phase, the third, the second, the first, and the root phase. I have a bunch of desires in me all the time. The more I can resist them, the more I can return the light. So the coarseness of the masah is the level of the desire that can be added to the masah. If I can add from here, okay, that's a really strong desire. So I can add a layer here, okay? And that's what we want. We want all this Malkut desires, the desires of Malkut, to have screen against those desires, because Malkut's desires are the coarsest. It's like the big desires. You know, having a desire for a sandwich or a chewing gum is not the same as having a desire for like a, I don't know, big juicy steak or something. All right, it's just not the same. Or having a desire just to have a sandwich is not the same as a desire that wants to, I don't know, that a desire to be the president of the country. It's not the same. So this Malkut is very coarse. It wants everything. It's like Malkut is the created desire to receive. So if we can handle those desires, then you can have a really strong masah. In the interim, there are desires that you can fulfill, but they're at a weaker level. They're not like Malkut that are really domineering pleasures. Okay, so we have coarseness here. All of these desires have a level of coarseness. And Malkut is the coarsest one, and then it becomes less, 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 less until we come to the purer desires. And now, because I've got so many desires in Malkut, I also have coarseness according to that. Okay. So I've got also, let's make this a different color, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Okay, so what happens here? Well, the Creator's light comes in. Let's do this a bit thicker, I guess. Okay, the Creator wants to bestow as usual. Okay, that's the Creator's light. What happens now is I'm receiving. Let's receive. Okay, as much as I can receive, I can bestow back. Let's do it the other way around, and let's do our bestowal in, let's do it in black. Okay. Okay, so according to the bestowal that I have here, according to the reception I have here, I can bestow back to the Creator. Okay, and according to that, I can take into the 0, the first, second, third, and fourth levels of desires. This is why, as much as I can bestow, okay, only if I receive a lot. I can't bestow to the Creator if I receive a little bit. I can only bestow to the Creator if I take everything. So as much as He bestows, if I can take it in order to bestow back, that's the amount of pleasure I can give back to the Creator. Right then. So let's read a little bit more. Zivug dehaka on a complete masach with all the levels of Avyut raises sufficient or hozer to clothe all 10 sifrot up to the level of Keter. This is exactly what it means. as much as I take from the Creator in all the levels of coarseness, okay, I'm fulfilling myself completely in every level. Say this is the green, I'm fulfilling myself here with these desires. If I fulfill myself with these desires, then I'm only giving pleasure to the Creator this much. That's it. It's not a lot, is it? So what I need to do is fulfill all the desires. Okay. And then I can bestow more to the Creator. So I have to bestow more, I receive more and more, and then I bestow more and more. There we go. Okay. And that's how it is. If we keep fulfilling them, let's make this red, the more coarser they are. Okay. There we go. Okay. Okay. A zivug de haka on a masach that lacks the avit of Bechina Dalet. The meaning of this is that the coarser vessels with the masach are those that attract the greater light, yet the purer vessels are those that receive them. This phenomena exists throughout all levels of creation and many times leaves us dumbfounded because we make an effort in one place and notice the result in another place. Okay? Okay, so what does that mean? Let's read a little bit more. Basically, it means this. Let me just give you an example of what it means. These are our pure vessels. Okay. Pure. And this is coarse. Okay. It's saying something very important we need to understand. I bestow more with my coarse desires because they're the big desires. But I receive less light in them. How can that be? If I'm receiving all the big desires, if I'm receiving fulfillment in all of my big desires, if I'm using my big desires in order to bestow, how can it be that I'm getting less light in the coarse one and getting more light in the pure one? Okay, that's what it's explaining to us here. Let's read this again. The meaning of this is that the coarser vessels with the masach are those that attract the greater light. So Malkut, this fourth phase, attracts the greater lights. Yet the purer vessels are those that receive them. So the purer vessel is receiving the greater light. That's like, it's like, how can that be? This phenomena exists throughout all levels of creation and many times leaves us dumbfounded because we make an effort in one place and notice the result in another place. For example, when you're exercising, more effort on a greater degree of difficulty and it gets easier on the previous degree. Okay, so when a baby is trying to walk but cannot walk, but is making an effort to walk, the baby isn't really so happy about it, but the parents are very happy about it. This is what it's trying to tell us. That an event is happening, but the pleasure is felt in something else. It's felt in another place. This happens a lot in our life. Not really understood either. But we can think of it that way, like this baby example. The baby is trying to walk, it's making an effort, it's getting quite stressed out, but the parents are very happy about it because it's developing. It's developing correctly. So the light is received in the parents, the pleasure is received in the parents, in the purer desire, while the baby who wants to walk and start moving and so on is feeling less light, okay? Because it's falling down, it's not pleasant, it can't make it, it can't stand up, and so forth. It's a bit tricky to get your head around, but think of it like this. You're using a desire, a big desire, where the pleasure that you want to get from it is in your relationship towards the other person and not by fulfilling yourself. Don't know if that makes sense. Does it make sense? Guys on the screen, does it make sense to you guys? No, nobody's making sense out of it. I have a big desire. I'm using the desire. But even though I'm using the desire, because I'm using it in order to bestow, I'm feeling it in the desire, I'm feeling the pleasure in bestowal, but not in what I'm tasting from the pleasure. We'll figure it out. Well, you should figure it out because I've got it figured out. All right. Okay, we'll see how we go. Let's read a little bit more. Okay, so let's connect it to our work. So in my present state, I only feel what's dalet and contains only aviyut of Bechina Gimel, raises sufficient or hozer to clothe the 10 sefirot only up to the level of Chochmah, lacking Keter. So basically this is what it's saying. Let's start drawing again. Okay, let's make this all clear for ourselves. Dalet, Gimel, Bet, Aleph, Shoresh. Okay, so let's go step by step. In my present state, I only feel what's Dalet. Okay, so actually consider this whole thing as Malchut. Okay, it's like the Dalet, the fourth phase, and contains only aviyut of Bechina Gimel. So if I only have Bechina Gimel, all right, this is Shoresh. Oops, that's not right in Hebrew. Shoresh, root. This is Aleph, A, or 1, Bet for 2, Gimel for 3, and Dalet for 4. Okay, this is Dalet. So in my present state, I only feel what's Dalet, and contains only aviyut of Bechina Gimel, raises sufficient or hozer to clothe the 10 sefirot only up to the level of Chochmah, lacking Keter. So if the Creator wants to bestow everything, let's make it a different color. The Creator wants to bestow. If I receive only up to Gimel, okay, I'm reflecting only up to Chochmah. Why? Is this Keter? Oh, wait a second. This is Keter, Chochma, Bina, Tiferet, Malkut. Okay. If I'm receiving here up to here, I can only clothe it with the light. Up to there, okay? So it's like I'm receiving, I'm only clothing up to Chochma. I'm lacking Keter, okay? If I was to, let's see what else it's saying, so we'll go step by step. And if it has only aviyut of bet, bechina bet, its or chozer diminishes and suffices only to clothe the 10 sefirot up to the level of bina, lacking keter and chochma. And if I was to receive only up to bechina what? Bechina bet, okay? So if I received only up to bechina, let's make it a bit thicker. So if I received only up to bechina bet, I'm only clothing the light. Up to that's Keter, Chochma, Bina, Tiferet, Malkut. Only up to here. All right. So the less I'm receiving, the less light I'm bestowing. If it contains only aviyut of bechina aleph, its or chozer diminishes even further and suffices only to clothe up to the level of tiferet, lacking keter, chochma, bina. So if I receive even less, up to the point of aleph, here I'm bestowing even less. I'm only bestowing according to Malkut and Tiferet and Keter, and Keter, Chochma, Bina, I'm not bestowing. I'm only bestowing as much as Tiferet and Malkut. Okay. And what else? And if it lacks aviyut bechina aleph 2 and is only left with the aviyut bechinot of shoresh, its striking is very faint and suffices to clothe only up to the level of malchut, lacking the first 9 sefirot, which are kachab and tiferet. And if I receive even less, say up to here, then I'm bestowing only up to Malkut. And Keter, Chochma, Bina, Tiferet, I'm not bestowing. Okay. So let's read this quote. There's always an inverse relation between lights and vessels. In the kelim, the higher ones grow first in the partsuf, first keter, then the kli of chochma, etc. And the kli of malchut grows last. This is why we name the kelim by the order keter, chochma, bina, tiferet, malchut, from above downwards, as this is the order of their growth. Okay? So always the vessel, the desire to receive, always grows in this format, what we learned before. Okay? In this format. There is no other way. And that, the whole thing, in fact, Let's use this one, this is better. Okay, the desire to receive always grows in this 4 phases. There is no other way. As the desire to receive grows, as children grow, their ego grows. So the desire to receive that's beginning to grow from root phase to 4 is becoming more and more coarse. That's what it's talking about. Okay, and because it's becoming more and more coarser, the light it's getting, it's less. Okay. There's always an inverse relationship between lights and vessels. In the Kelim, the higher ones grow first in the Partsuf, first Keter, then the Kli of Chochmah, etc. And the Kli of Malchut grows last. This is why we name the Kelim by the order Kachabtum, Keter, Chochmah, Bina, Tiferet, Malchut, in other words, from above downwards, as this is the order of their growth. It is to the contrary with the lights. In the lights, the lower lights are the first to enter the Partsuf. So, the lower lights. Now we're coming to an interesting part. Up to here, I'm sure you're all confused, but it'll work out. You'll see it'll work out. We learned before about the lights as well. Okay. Once again, let's not be lazy. Okay, this is the coarseness of the vessel. Okay, this is Malchut, the desire to receive, the 4th phase. In other words, Dalet. Now, the vessel is growing from pure to coarse. Okay, this is how the vessel is growing. Just like with the child example, babies are not so egoistic, but as they grow up, kids become more egoistic until they're fully egoists. Okay, so what do we have here? We don't have anything there. Okay, so what happens is this. The Creator wants to bestow, just like we learned. His lights, Keter, Chochmah, Bina, Tiferet or Zerampin, and Malchut. Okay? The first light, according to the purer vessels, we can only start to work with the purer vessels first. I can't work with a huge desire when I haven't taken care of a smaller desire. So the smaller desire that I have is fulfilled first. This is called Nefesh. The name of the light is called Nefesh. We learned the names of the lights in the previous lessons, right? In the first semester. Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama. Now here's the thing. When the purer vessel receives the light of Nefesh, and I now want to bestow, okay, by receiving more and want to receive even further lights, then something interesting happens. Nefesh now moves down to the place of Chochmah, and this new light here, called Ruach, fills Keter. And if I want to bestow even more, I take lights all the way down to the level of Bina. Now, Nefesh comes here, Ruach comes here, Neshama comes here. And if I want to take even more lights, then Nefesh fills Tiferet, Ruach fills Bina, Neshama fills Chokhmah, Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, and the light of Chaya fills Keter. And if I still want to now fulfill the vessel to the end, okay, let's do it like this. Then the light of Nefesh comes down to Malkut. The light of Ruach goes to Tiferet. The light of Neshama comes to Bina. The light of Chaya comes to Chokhmah, and the light of Yehidah comes to Keter. Now, why is that inverse? Logically, the greater the desire, the best light I should get, right? Which is Yehidah is the best light ever. Oops, that's a bit off. Yehidah is the greatest light. Okay? Logically, I should get the greatest light in Malkut. That's where the big desire is. But wrong. Why? Because we built ourselves a new vessel here. We're beginning to get the bigger light in the vessel of reception. So I have big lights, but I'm receiving the pleasure, the greatest light, in the bestowal, not in the taste of the food. That's why the light is inversely related to the desire. Is that logical? I have a big desire. If I fulfill myself, I'm going to get little light because desire and pleasure cancel each other out. But if I'm bestowing, I've got myself a new kli now. Remember, we built a new vessel. We built a new vessel for ourselves. Remember? I'm now getting in the big desire to receive from Malchut here the pleasure in this new vessel up here in Keter. So the pleasure from bestowal is max. The pleasure in the desire to receive is minimal. Logical, right? In our world, it's the opposite. In our world, if I have a big desire and I fulfill it, I feel more pleasure, but it's cancelled afterwards. The pleasure and the desire, they cancel each other out. However, we're now thinking about bestowal. So the greater the desire I have, I can bestow more. So the greater the desire is great, okay, but the fulfillment of the desire is little, but the pleasure in bestowal is max. And that's where I'm receiving the light. Yehidah. That's why Keter is filled with Yehidah, because Keter is being clothed with that. Does that make sense? Because we changed the vessel. Not reception, but bestowal. Okay, I think at the end it became more clear. Okay. Good. Anything else? Okay. So initially, let's read a little bit more and finish this off. Initially, everything worked out perfectly when we had the 4 phases of direct light. Okay, let's call this Malkut. Initially, everything worked out fine when the Creator created us from nothing. We had the first phase, the second phase, the third phase, and the fourth phase. Okay, and then we had the first restriction. Okay, everything here now matched the desire. But after the Tzimtzum, after the restriction, things change. Okay, this is where the change is happening. So in the 4 phase of direct light, there was a perfect match between the lights and vessels. And now after Tzimtzum Aleph, there's an inverse relation. Only when the Kli of Malkut is used in order to bestow, the light of Yehidah will enter. Okay? So only if I'm using it in order to bestow, I can get greater lights. So the restriction is now changing the situation. Instead of fulfilling myself here, now the objective of the exercise is to get the pleasure from bestowing. So I'm using a really big desire, but if I'm using it in order to bestow, I'm getting maximum pleasure. I'm getting the pleasure from bestowal, in other words, not from filling the Kli. That's why it's inverse related. Okay? Okay. Only when the Kli of Malkut is used in order to bestow, the light of Yehidah will enter, but it will be revealed in the Kli of Keter. Within my reason, within my vessels, I can never feel the next degree. I can only measure the effort of going above the ego, while all it wants is direct fulfillment. But when that state reaches correction, I feel a greater connection to the group, to the lessons, etc. This is why Kabbalists say, I labored and I found. So this is critically important because our work is always in our present vessels, which get coarser from state to state, and the result is felt in our purer vessels. Okay, so in spirituality, this is also why we get confused. As we advance in spirituality, what happens? We become coarser. We become more egoistic, right? We discover that we're more egoists, okay? But where's our pleasure felt? As we advance in spirituality, the pleasure is felt when I'm actually helping the friends out, even with small things. So I'm receiving the light somewhere else. I'm doing one action, it's like I'm getting paid completely for something else. When we're learning to use the desire in order to bestow, I'm getting the pleasure in bestowal. That's the trick. Get your head around that tonight, and the next lesson will be clear. We changed after the restriction, we changed what we're going to get pleasure from. Instead of getting pleasure from this fulfillment here, we decided we don't want to get pleasure like this. We want to get pleasure from bestowing. This is where we want to get pleasure. So the action, this is why we're also confused in this world. The action is reception. I'm receiving, right? But I'm receiving the pleasure in bestowing. The act is reception, but the pleasure is in the bestowal. This is why they're in two different places. This is why a lot of people can't make sense out of life, because when you're receiving, you can't get pleasure. Logically, you're supposed to, but you can't. This is why the pleasure cancels out the desire. And this is why Malkut, after the first restriction, is changing its approach. It's clothing itself with the direct light. And now it's beginning to get pleasure from being like the Creator. So I'm using the big desires to receive from the Creator, but the desire is not important. The bestowing relationship is more important. So although I'm having money in my pocket, I'm actually getting the pleasure not from receiving the money, but from, well, maybe that was a bad example. So that's a bad example because we always want to get money. Okay, so let's put that aside for a moment. Forget I said that. Okay. All right. Okay, I'm not going to explain further. We'll get more confused. Okay, but just so that you understand, we're now in a new way of getting pleasure, not from fulfilling the vessel, but from bestowing to the Creator by receiving from Him. There you go. Okay, if you're confused, you can ask questions in the next lesson. We'll go over it. Marie is asking, if I'm bestowing from Peh, you're not bestowing from Peh. Okay? We're always making a calculation in the Rosh, in the head. Okay? Peh is a point of stopping the reception. It's like I'm saying, wait a minute, before I take a bite, I want to just think about this for a second. Okay? So the Rosh is where I'm calculating. So how much I can bestow is from the Rosh. Okay, so I'll just read the whole question again, but we just clarified this little point here. If I'm bestowing from the Peh, mouth, from within onto another, will that person feel... If I'm bestowing from Peh, from within onto another, will that person feel the light or pleasure that the Creator wants to give? No. Okay, I understand. Maybe I understood what you're saying. Your question is not very clear. But let me just say, let's just answer this question. Let's say this is Marie. This is the Creator. So if you're bestowing, let's say the Creator is bestowing to you, and you're bestowing to somebody else. Okay? Now you're saying, will that if I'm bestowing from the Peh, from within to another person, to another will, to another person, will that person feel the light or pleasure that the Creator wants to give? This person, let's say this is Marie, okay, and this is, I don't know, let's say this is Joe, okay? Joe will feel your bestowal, okay? Joe feels Marie's bestowal. So Joe will not feel the Creator until Joe now bestows to, I don't know, Claire, okay? And Claire feels happy from bestowal, but Joe will feel the Creator, okay, only if Joe is bestowing. So the Creator is only felt as much as I bestow in bestowal. So if you're bestowing to somebody else, that person is receiving pleasure from what you gave. If they bestow back to you or to somebody else, in the attribute of bestowal, they're going to feel the Creator's light, because the Creator is bestowal. Okay? So whoever is bestowing feels the pleasure from the Creator, feels the light of the Creator, because the Creator is bestowal. So in order for us to feel the light of the Creator, we must be similar to the Creator. Let's say if Marie is similar to the Creator, Marie will feel the Creator. All right, I hope that's clear. There aren't any more questions. Okay, so we'll go on to the next lesson next week. This lesson was a bit longer than usual, but this is a bit of a complicated lesson. I want to draw a lot to make sure we go into the nitty-gritty of stuff. But just remember, the important thing to take from this lesson is this. After the 4 phases of direct light, and after the first restriction, we are now switching to another way of receiving pleasure. Our vessel is now changing. We're building a new vessel called the reflected light. Okay? That is important because now we're adapting ourselves to the Creator in the attribute of bestowal. So there's a flip to how we're receiving pleasure. So this is why things are getting a little complicated, seemingly complicated. It'll be clarified once we go over it a few times. In the meantime, guys, have a great day or an evening. Any questions, send them to our email addresses, which I gave at the